So I have a second channel where I actually make Genshin Impact content. So if you're interested in the type of content we've had on Star Rail, but in Genshin format, definitely look forward to this channel. The link for this will be in the description. I have an idea of the next character I want to make a video on. So you just got done watching the 2.0 live stream, and honestly, you're probably as excited as I am about this upcoming version. Now, I've been waiting for this for quite a while now, because it has some of my most highly anticipated characters coming forward into Honkai Star Rail. And I'm really interested in playing around with the finally completed Mono Quantum Team Comp. But today's video, we're going to be going over all of the 2.0 characters and what character you should roll for in this upcoming patch, including the reruns as well. Yo, what up, Toshi here. Now let's start from my most anticipated character of this patch. If it wasn't as obvious as it currently is, let me just go ahead and tell you. Hanabi, Sparkle. She's going to be a character just like Bronya that is very nice in hyper carry, but is also nice in other team comps. She works really nice with characters that have backloaded damage. She works really nice with characters of the quantum element. She is just more universal than Bronya overall. What I do like about Sparkle is that she's very similar to how Bronya is built. So if you have additional relics on your account that matches that of Bronya's current build, you can just transfer over those relics to your Sparkle, or you can take your relics off of Bronya and put them on Sparkle, depending on what type of team comp you want to use with Sparkle, which we'll get into in just a second. So I'm going to personally be using But the Battle Isn't Over in my Hanabi, and that's because I have a special interaction with this light cone in combination with the planar set. I do have S2 of the light cone, so if you have S1 of this light cone, you're going to still need some extra energy regeneration, whether that is in the form of energy regeneration rate link rope. So you are better off just using other light cones depending on what team comps you plan to use with Sparkle. And the extra skill points when this character already gives skill points is very nice. Another skill point on top of the multiple skill points she gives with ultimate and technique means that you'll never ever run out of skill points. If you plan to use her with Mono Quantum, you cannot go wrong with Planetary Rendezvous. Spark already gives a lot of attack percentage, she gives a ton of crit damage, and she gives damage boost. But she doesn't give as much damage boost as she once did, instead she gives other stats on top of that, which is very nice. That means Planetary Rendezvous has even more value in those Mono Quantum team comps. Dance, Dance, Dance you can't go wrong with on the character because unlike other Harmony characters, she has a 3-turn ultimate with just having energy regeneration rate link rope on the character. So she's very flexible in the sense of light cone choices because she doesn't have to use meshing cogs or any light cone that gives her energy regeneration rate. So having Dance 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 on a team of multiple damage dealers is going to be very valuable. So whenever you're using Sparkle in those dual DPS teams, you can't go wrong with this light cone. And again, since Hanabi doesn't care about the energy regeneration rate from But the Battle Isn't Over, you can use Past and Future on the character, which gives increased damage whenever that damage dealer goes after Sparkle. And considering Sparkle gives 50% action forward, most of the time you will be meeting the criteria for having that damage boost on the character, depending on the damage dealer you use with Sparkle, and depending on the amount of speed you have on the character and your damage dealer too. There is a couple things you need to know about Sparkle before we do get into her team comps. One of those things being Sparkle and her speed tuning, and the other thing being how she works compared to a character like Bronya. Because unlike Bronya, she doesn't cleanse, and unlike Bronya, she doesn't have 100% action forward with the elemental skill. Bronya's elemental skill gives a fat damage bonus to one damage dealer or one ally in the team party, and she cleanses a debuff from them, removing CC or removing harmful damaging effects on that ally, which means in combination with some characters like Bailu, she works really well. Sparkle, on the other hand, doesn't have a cleanse on the elemental skill, but gives a ton of crit damage to that damage dealer. So for a lot of damage dealers in the game that are built with a lot of damage bonuses, whether that's in their kit or with their skills, the crit damage is going to be a lot more valuable for characters like Steel especially. And furthermore, since Sparkle doesn't cleanse, it doesn't work as well with characters like Bailu because if your character is CC'd or has harmful damaging effects, and you take their turn in their low HP, you're probably going to die with the character. Furthermore, Sparkle only gives 50% action forward, which means your damage dealer is going to have to take into consideration that depending on the amount of speed you have on your other characters, you may not be able to meet that criteria for having light cones like Past and Future, since Sparkle only gives 50% action forward, and you want to meet the criteria for allowing your damage dealer to take advantage of the light cone options such as Past and Future and the But the Battle Isn't Over. You're going to have to take into consideration your damage dealer has to be very, very slow. So Daniel is the perfect example of this. Having this character at close to 100 speed means that my Sparkle is going to take multiple turns, and by the time Sparkle is taking her turn again, she'll be right before Daniel, allowing Daniel to get the action forward and take the turn right after her, which means that I'll be able to give the damage boost to this character. But if you have other characters in the team party that are also fast, just like Sparkle, it's going to be very hard to keep the damage boost on your damage dealer at all times. So for Monochrome specifically, I would just opt for Planetary Rendezvous because it would save you a lot of the headache of having to worry about speed tuning. Getting my Sword Wolf at 163 speed has been very rough. I had to neglect a lot of other stats, and you take into consideration speed is the hardest stat to obtain in the game on top of that. So with all that out of the way, now we can finally talk about her team comps. And for those of you that wanted to use a Bronya for your characters that have not been able to use Bronya, well, now you have one. The only team in the game that is not going to take advantage of Sparkle is going to be Kafka, and that's because Sparkle has the elemental skill that gives crit damage to an ally. Well, in the Dot team, no one here is built on crit, unless you have a crit Kafka, which means you're neglecting a lot of stats on the character to buff up her dot damage. Although she does give a little bit of attack percentage, even more with quantum characters, and she gives a ton of damage boosting and skill points to the team, you're better off just using Bronya instead, which gives more attack percentage and gives more elemental damage bonuses to the ally that wants to detonate anyways, and that's Kafka. And 100% action forward is kind of better anyways, especially when you don't really care about speed tuning in the first place on a team like this. And you can put Kafka on attack percentage boots too. However, for hypercarry teams, Sparkle and Bronya can be used together. You can use these two in combination with your damage dealer to give that damage dealer multiple turns. It feels very nice in combination with characters like Seal. Now, I personally will be using Sparkle in the Monochrome team, which we'll go over in just a second. But with the Bailu character in this team party, you have all of your characters being more tanky. You have a revive in case something goes wrong. And since Bronya has an elemental skill with a cleanse, you don't have to worry about Sparkle not being able to give a cleanse to the team. And since Sparkle does give skill points to the team, Bronya and Seal being very skill point hungry characters means that they can take advantage of all the skill points that Sparkle provides to the team. And you'll be able to ramp up the damage bonus she gives because you'll be constantly using skill points on both characters also. But the truth be told, you can use any damage dealer in place of Seal for the hypercarry format and it works just as fine really. I will say our Jin T likes Ting Yun more, but you can use Sparkle regardless. However, characters with backloaded damage will be able to take advantage of Sparkle's elemental skill, boosting up the crit damage of said damage dealer. So that means characters like Jing finally have a Bronya that they can utilize for themselves, which means that they're going to be dealing a lot of more damage than those hypercarry teams. If you want to use Ruan Mei in your dot setups with Kafka, you can now put Sparkle in place of her in your dual DPS setups, and that's because her damage buffs and her attack percentage she gives to the team and the skill points is very valuable for a team that wants to spam skills and wants to take advantage of those extra buffs just like Ruan Mei provided for this team previously. And furthermore, the crit damage she gives with elemental skill can be applied to one damage dealer and applied to the other because these two characters both take advantage of backloaded damage. So that means you can cycle between both characters, buffing up their damage greatly with the elemental skill. So teams like this are going to be very nice with Sparkle in place of Bronya and Ruan Mei. So the best thing about Sparkle for me personally is that she now finally completes the team that for me personally she was meant to be in. She gives invaluable attack percentage buffs the more quantum members you have in the team party. So that means for mono quantum, every character here except for Swan and Lynx, unfortunately because they are built on max HP, are going to deal a ton of more damage because they take advantage of the attack percentage. Furthermore, the damage buffs and the skill points means that every character in the team party can spam skills, Seal especially, QQ also, and take advantage of being able to do more DPS. Because you don't have to worry about characters like Bronya taking away skill points from your damage dealer and gambling on the idle on one from the character. Furthermore, you can get further damage buffs with Planetary Rendezvous. You don't have to worry about speed tuning any of the characters in here because the damage buff is going to apply at all given times. And in combination with the Penacony Planar set, you're giving even more damage bonus on top of that. So this team is going to feel really good in 2.0. I am a little shameless for this one here, but the truth is Sparkle's light cone, even though I don't talk about 5-star light cones, it's something I'm going to be rolling for personally, and I am a little biased because this is my favorite team, is going to allow characters like Swan to be built more in a DPS build. This character does have crit traces, and the damage buffs that Swan can take advantage of from Sparkle means this character can deal more DPS. And the crit rate you get from Sparkle's light cone and crit damage also means this character will not have to worry about getting crit stats because Sparkle will be the one providing those crit stats to the team and Swan also. But with the changes to Sparkle, because she gives attack percentage now, characters like Swan aren't going to deal as much damage as they were able to previously. But it's okay, because you still can take advantage of all the other buffs that Sparkle provides. And if you're not building her in a DPS build anyways, you can still give a lot of CC blockage to the team with the elemental skill. So that's also a nice plus, and more energy regeneration, so you get your ult faster. So this is going to be the longest segment of the video because I, for one, am very interested in this character. And the second thing is, she is essentially a Bronya for a lot of characters in the game that weren't able to use Bronya previously. But should you roll for the character if you have Bronya, you don't like using the characters with backloaded damage, like Jing and Topaz? Truth be told, honestly, I think she is a very valuable pickup in this patch, but if you are looking forward to other characters in this video or other characters going forward, you can honestly skip her, which is kind of weird to say because she's a very, very, very strong character, but you should roll for what you want to roll for anyways. Now let's talk about Black Swan. As much as I am a monoquantum enjoyer, I am also a dot enjoyer, and I've been playing with this team comp ever since Kafka released. Now that we finally, just like monoquantum, have the character to finally complete the team, you now have a very strong and fun to use team with Black Swan. Now let's talk about the dot team and its best features compared to other teams in the game. One of those things being that this team is very easy to build, unlike other teams. You only have to worry about 3 stats, so literally 3 stats: attack percentage, speed, and effect hit rate. Everything else is pointless because these characters only deal damage with their dots. I mean, you can build them with more crit stats, but you are neglecting the fact that their dots take up most of the damage in the team overall. So only having to worry about 3 stats compared to the 5 stats for other characters means that you can save a lot of time relic farming, and crit stats are really hard to obtain. So that's even less of a headache to worry about. And again, when you have a spear that looks like this and you're able to use it on a damage dealer, you save yourself so much time because you don't have to worry about getting a spear that is hard to obtain with a damage boost with crit stats on top of that. Now, Black Swan essentially is going to be a 5-star version of Sampo. That is the easiest way to describe the character. She is a direct upgrade versus Sampo in every Kafka team. Furthermore, you can use Black Swan by herself without Kafka in the team, but do understand that you're neglecting the fact that Kafka is going to detonate the dots even when the enemy doesn't take their turn. So if you are not using Black Swan in game modes like Golds and Gears, Similar Universe, where the enemies take many turns because they have tons of speed, you're going to be doing less damage overall unless you had Kafka in the team. I'm not saying Kafka is a must-use with Black Swan, it just makes the team a lot better, in my honest opinion. So the easiest way to describe Black Swan compared to Sampo is that she does everything this character does but better. She increases the dot damage the enemies take. She increases the personal damage the enemies take because compared to Sampo, she deals even more wind damage to those enemies. But just like Sampo, she has a skill point positive playstyle, which means she's not taking too many skill points away from characters like Kafka if you plan to use those characters together. Furthermore, take advantage of the fact that she has a decreased defense she places on the enemy with the elemental skill as well, which means she's going to increase the damage overall the enemies take from her damage, but also other dot characters in the team party like Kafka, for instance. And Sampo, even at E6, cannot even compare to Black Swan at E0 because she deals that much more damage and provides that much more valuable buffing capabilities to the team. But the best thing about Black Swan is that everything you have on your Sampo, you can literally just transfer over to your Black Swan. The effect hit rate, the speed, and attack percentage stats that you have on Sampo is directly converted to your Black Swan. But with that being said, Black Swan is going to need a little bit more effect hit rate because her debuffs are harder to land on the enemies versus the debuffs that Sampo has. So that means Lycans, like before the tutorial mission starts, is very valuable in the character. You get energy, which means she'll get her ult faster, and you increase the effect rate of the character, which is everything the character needs. But if you are not that fortunate, you can use Eyes of the Prey, which increases the effect rate of the character and increases the dot as well. So that means her personal damage is getting a nice buff. And last but not least, if you're looking to just give the character as much damage as you can because you want her to hit like a truck, Good Night and Sleep Well is going to be your best bet because you increase the dot damage the enemy is taking greatly. In combination with other dot characters or even herself in the team party, you're going to apply those debuffs really fast and the damage is going to ramp up really quickly in the first turn. So for Kafka enjoyers and non-Kafka enjoyers, you're really going to enjoy Black Swan because she increases the damage the enemies take and she gives a ton of damage on top of that. So that means for those of you that did not like Sampo as a character, well, now you don't have to use him anymore. The sad reality is that Black Swan still has a very niche kit. So that means she is best in slot in really only one team in the game, the Kafka dot team. However, you can use her other teams where you want to buff up the damage you like characters like Dr. Ratio that wants to have debuffs on the enemy in order to deal as much damage as he can. But other than that, you are better off just using other characters like Silverwolf in those team comps and characters like Pela that is a 4-star that is easier to obtain. Furthermore, in a team with Kafka, you can take advantage of Ruame giving invaluable buffs to the team, break effect efficiency, and damage boosting, speed capabilities boosting as well. I think some very interesting setups though is utilizing both Ruame and Asta in the team party with Kafka and Black Swan. You get a ton of speed boosting and attack boosting capabilities from Asta, and you give a more further speed boosting capabilities and damage boosting for the team, break effect efficiency. Everything I said previously, right? Ruame is an overloaded character. All funneled into your Kafka and your Black Swan. They're going to deal tons of damage, have a ton of speed, and in combination with Dance, they'll get a ton of action forward as well. So this team is going to be taking so many turns and dealing so many damage. Just kill or be killed essentially. If you are a hyper carry enjoyer, you can't go wrong with using Ting Yun alongside your Kafka and Black Swan. The ultimate energy increasing that this character gives to Kafka means that Kafka is going to detonate those dots on the enemy and contribute to the stacks that Black Swan has for her own personal damage. Furthermore, you're just going to deal so much more damage because if you're detonating the dots, the enemies are going to take more damage and you have more breaking capabilities on the AoE, which is very nice. When it comes to the relic sets you use on Black Swan, you really only have two choices. The best one going to be Prisoner, which gives an attack increase. You ignore the enemy's defense when you have 3 dots on enemy, which contributes more towards the personal damage of Black Swan. And the criteria will be easy to meet with other dot characters in the team party. And take into consideration, it is also in the same domain as the Ash Blazing set Grand Duke, which means that it is very resin efficient for your other characters as well. You can use Eagle of Twilight Line, which is the wind stat that you probably have on your Bronya, which gives increased wind damage, which means that your Black Swan is going to be dealing even more damage with the dots and her own personal damage as well. But you also get action 4 whenever you use your ultimate, which is very nice for the character because you want to use your ultimate as much as you can. So in combination with the Silverwolf Lycoon, you're going to be dealing more damage with the ultimate, right? And you're going to be taking more turns. And as for the rope set, you probably want to use Glamoff because you're going to be building a character with a lot of speed, or maybe you have her in a team with Asta and Ruame who give speed to the team anyways. So you'll meet the Glamoff's criteria speed that you need in order to increase your damage and your attack percentage for the character. And since you've been farming for Kafka, other characters in that same planar set domain, it's just resin efficient anyways. So for those of you that enjoy Dot and the playstyle it brings to the table and how efficient it is in terms of building the characters, you should definitely look forward to Black Swan. And if you are not a fan of Sampo, that's even more of a reason to roll for the character. Furthermore, since she is a direct upgrade to Kafka teams, you'll find this team to be very competitive to the hyper carry teams, because now we have a team that essentially is putting out a lot of damage compared to, hyper carry as well. So it's very nice. Dot feels very competitive now. So would I personally roll for her? Yes, because I have the Dot playstyle on my account, but if you're not a fan of Dots, then you can safely skip the character. If you want to use her as a character that puts defense down in the AoE on the enemies, just like Pela, you probably want to use Pela instead, because Pela gives more defense down, right? And she can do that without having to use an elemental skill ever. Let's talk about the king of Honkai Star Rail, or that's what the community regards him as. I consider Argenti to be the king of Honkai Star Rail because he just feels really good in AoE. But Dan Heng is very nice in AoE as well, and he's even better in single target. Against enemies that are weak to imaginary, this guy just pulls ahead of any other character in the game. It's not even close. I mean, that is the element that he is strong against the most, but comparative to other characters that are of the same element, they don't feel as good as he does. In all contexts, right? Now, the thing is about Daniel, he's a character that is very risky for many players, and his playstyle doesn't fit everyone. He uses 3 skill points every time he takes his turn, unless you have 3 skill points from your ultimate. But if you are using him in combination characters like Bronya, you have an even more risky playstyle. That means you have to take advantage of your Dan Heng being on a very slow build, just so you can build up more skill points before he takes his turn. But with that being said, you have increased damage output in the character, and he hits like a truck when he does take his turn. So with that being said, this character is going to feel even better with the addition of Sparkle. Sparkle is going to be the better Bronya for Dan Heng. Heck, you can use both characters with Daniel, but the truth is, you're better off just using Sparkle in combination with Daniel and having a character like Yukong or a character like Ting Yun to give more buffs and energy, Ting Yun giving energy to Daniel in order for him to get his ult quicker. So what does Sparkle do that is more beneficial to Daniel than that is of Bronya being beneficial to Daniel herself. Well, the truth is that Sparkle gives crit damage on the elemental skill, which means your Daniel with lower crit damage can take advantage of that crit damage even more. And Daniel likes the skill points that Sparkle does provide because he's a character that uses 3 skill points every time he takes his turn. So when you use Sparkle's technique before the fight starts, you'll load into the fight with more skill points, a max of 7, and your Daniel will be able to get those skill points he needs for his damage to come online. So compared to Bronya, the playstyle feels a lot less risky. But let's just say you don't want to roll for Sparkle because you don't have the pools to roll for her and Daniel in the same patch, and you just want to know how good is Daniel without Sparkle. He's still really good. For the time being, most players have been using him alongside characters like Bronya, Jing Yuan, and Yukong. Yukong feels really good if you have her idle on 6 because she gives invaluable buffs to this character. Let me explain. Yukong is the premier imaginary buffer. She gives a lot of imaginary boosting capabilities with her traces, and she gives even more imaginary boosting with Planetary Rendezvous. At E6, she becomes godsend for Daniel because that means she becomes even less of a skill point detriment to the team, which means you'll have more uptime on those buffs she can provide for the character. And the buff she gives is massive: crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage. This is everything a damage dealer wants because that means that Daniel will be a lot easier to build because the crit and crit damage when you have uptime on it is going to allow the character to crit all the time and take advantage of having high crit rate with an increased crit damage on the character. And the truth is, the interaction that Sparkle does have with Yukong giving crit damage, right, that is for all allies, no matter what allies take in that turn, you're going to give even more crit damage to Daniel if your Daniel goes right after your Sparkle goes after your Yukong. This is a huge damage increase for both characters. Even though Sparkle doesn't do damage, right, she's giving more damage to the damage dealer. And Jing Yuan, for any character that wants their ultimate as soon as possible, is still regarded as being the best character for that. And the energy, the damage buffs, and the speed and attack increase she gives to the ally is very, very valuable. But Hanya, who was released recently in Honkai Star, has been very nice to use with Daniel. To me, she is considered to be Sparkle Light. What I mean by Sparkle Light is essentially a budget Sparkle, a Sparkle you get at the flea market. This character gives skill points to the team, not as much skill points as rapidly as Sparkle does, but she gives nice speed buffing, attack boosting, and damage buffing capabilities to the sole damage dealer. So that means for Daniel, she is everything you really need in one character. So truth be told, you don't need Sparkle. Sparkle is just going to be the best teammate you can use with Daniel. So when it comes to his team comps overall, they're very strict. You only want to use one damage dealer in the team because he takes so many skill points away from the team. And as many buffs as you can give to the damage dealer, in this case Daniel, which means he's just only good in hyper carry, is the better. So Luocha being a very nice skill point defensive option, you can use other characters that are also skill point positive in the team to help generate more skill points for Daniel. And with the combination of being imaginary just like Daniel, you have more toughness breaking capabilities in the team whenever the enemies are weak to imaginary. And against Mara struck enemies, this guy feels really good to use anyway, so you don't have to worry about the enemies reviving. But again, you can use any duo harmony setup. You just have to keep in mind that your Daniel has to be slower, right? If you're using Bronya, because Bronya uses more skill points. And you can use Yukong as well, but you have to make sure that your Yukong is giving those buffs to Daniel when he takes his turn. So that means your Yukong has to be especially fast, just like Jing Yuan and Bronya. And to be completely honest, this character does so much damage to the point where I've never needed to level up his traces past level 8. And I know every damage dealer you want to level up as far as you can with the traces, but again, Daniel just does so much damage, man. I never need to level them up further than how they already are right now. When it comes to the relic options, you can't go wrong with Wastelander, which gives a ton of damage boosting for the character, crit damage, and imaginary damage boosting as well. In combination with Luocha, who helps with the toughness break in the enemy, you'll find this set to be very nice to use in the team. And if you have Walt in the team party as well, you'll have the enemies be imprisoned, which means you'll have the 4-piece passive all the time. And when it comes to the planar set, you can't go on Rudolon because this increases the character's damage greatly. Most of his damage comes from his enhanced basic attack. And the crew rate is very good for any damage dealer, of course. As for his light cone choice, Brighter Than the Sun is going to be very nice because the ult rotations the energy regeneration gives makes those more smooth. The attack increase is very nice and the crit rate is very good, don't get me wrong, but the energy regeneration rate is the best part of the light cone. But if you don't have enough pools for his 5-star light cone, then you can't go wrong with Only Fall of an Aeon, I just promote the 5-star limited light cones for the characters, depending on whether or not you already have the character in time for that character's rerun. But the simulated universe light cone is going to increase the damage greatly of Daniel. This is not even that far away from being very nice for the character, especially if you have refinements on it. It gives a lot more damage to the character. Attack increase is very, very good for Daniel because unlike other characters, his attack won't be as high, especially if you do have the character with speed in mind. So let's take a few things into consideration before you decide to roll for Daniel. We got Dr. Ratio for free. He's an imaginary character, and unlike Daniel, he's only good in single target fights, which means Daniel has the advantage over him in all contents. Furthermore, Daniel is a character that has a playstyle that is very risky. If you're not using Sparkle, it's even more risky. And if you want to use characters like Huo, you can never play the team in auto. But with that being said, I don't have anything else bad to say about the character because he's helped me clear Memories of Chaos ever since I've gotten him. When enemies are weak to imaginary, this character feels really, really good. And with Sparkle to be released, he's going to feel even better. So he's going to have a lot more damage to put out. I can't believe I'm saying that. One of the strongest characters is going to become even better. Now, let's wrap it up with Jing. He's also going to be rerunning alongside Daniel in this patch. Now, I find it very funny. For those of you that main Jing or for those of you that main Daniel, you have it really hard this patch because you obviously want Sparkle if you are a main of these two characters. Because Sparkle will be increasing the damage output of these two characters like crazy. Now, should you roll for Jing, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Out of all of the characters I play with Honkai Star Rail, this has been my least enjoyable character. And it's not because there's anything wrong with the character. I'm just not a fan of the playstyle. You have to keep in mind, Honkai Star Rail is a game with different playstyles. If you don't enjoy the backloaded damage this character has in his kit, you're definitely not going to like how he plays out. And I'm not saying he's bad. He's a very strong, very solid damage dealer. You have to take into consideration this is coming from a Kafka enjoyer. But with that being said, against enemies that are weak to lightning and hypercarry teams, dual DPS teams, this character feels really freaking good. And with Sparkle coming out too, he's going to feel even better, man. Now let's get this out of the way. If you are a Jing main and you don't have his 5-star light cone, roll for this light cone, man. This light cone gives a ton of crit damage, increases the skill and ultimate damage, which helps with defeating the additional enemies on the field, and you deal even more damage to the follow-up attack as well. So in combination with other characters that help you get your damage, right? Damage boost your follow-up attack, and damage boost your skill and ultimate like Jing Yuan and characters like Sparkle, you're going to feel his light cone be even more stronger with those characters. So in hypercarry setups, this light cone feels even better. And if you have Topaz in the team party, you're going to find your follow-up attacks to absolutely melt the enemies when Lightning Lord does take his turn. However, if you do not want to roll for the 5-star light cone because you consider the light cone banner to be very risky, which is absolutely understandable, right? It's a very gambling-like feature of the game, then the seriousness of preference, you can't go wrong with this light cone because it gives a fat damage buff and you increase your attack like crazy whenever you defeat an enemy. And considering it's a light cone you can get relatively easily with refinements, you'll find this light cone to be very nice on the character. Now recently, Jing has gotten a very nice buff in the form of a tailor-made relic set. This relic set increases the damage of the character like crazy, and the Lightning Lord is the one to benefit the most from this set, which means Jing now feels like a very solid character. So with that being said, with this relic set, you're able to not only increase the follow-up attack damage like crazy, but it's also very resin efficient because maybe you're building your other characters like you have dot characters on your account, then you can use less resin on your characters overall because you are farming in only one relic domain. So the team comps for Jing is pretty much what we mentioned earlier in the video. In dual DPS setups with Topaz, you'll find this team to be very nice to use. In combination with Ruan-Mei, this team feels so freaking good, man. You have the fat damage increase from Topaz with the follow attack debuff she places onto the enemy. So when Jing's Lightning Lord takes the turn, you're going to deal so much damage, and you'll push up the action forward of Numbi. So Topaz deals even more damage, and Ruan-Mei with the buff she provides for a team and her being skill point positive, you can spam as many skills as you want on your two damage dealers. This team feels so good right now, man. In your hypercarry setups, you can finally say goodbye to Bronya because Sparkle is now the queen of hypercarry with Jing. So that means Jing's Lightning Lord is going to take advantage of the crit damage Sparkle provides with the elemental skill. He's going to feel really good in the hypercarry setups with Sparkle and Jing Yuan. And if you're looking for a team that is as budget as it gets, maybe you don't have that many Star J's on your account, maybe you don't have that many characters on your account either, you can't go wrong with this 4-star setup, Jing Yuan, Asta, and Lynx, 2 characters you get for free, Asta and Lynx, and Jing Yuan you will definitely get at some point. is still a very nice team for Jing. You have everything you need in this team. Speed and attack from Asta, energy from Jing Yuan, and you have Lynx being able to give a lot of cleanses with the ultimate and tons of healing output. This team is really good also. So I like that Jing has a very nice free-to-play setup, and I like that he has a very nice paid setup. Sparkle, his 5-star light cone. No matter what team you have with Jing, he's going to feel like a very nice character. Now, that being said, would I roll for him if I didn't already have him? No. I mean, I use Kafka, and like I said, I have Kafka Brain Rot. I enjoy dot teams, and since Kafka is a dot character, which is completely different from the playstyle Jing has, right? She is still a lightning character at her core. And I think a lot of people will realize once Akadon comes out, she's a lightning character also. She's going to be compared to Jing. We'll talk about that character and this character in a future video, so don't worry, look forward to that. But all you need to know is that Jing is a character that is going to have to compete with other characters going forward. But if you choose to roll for him, you can't go wrong. And if you have the character ready, please do pick up his 5-star light cone. It is a game changer. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Honestly, this was a blast to record. Definitely not a blast from my throat because it's very sore after all the talking I had to do in this video. But hopefully you got something out of this. Honestly, my most anticipated character for this patch is definitely Sparkle, but I wouldn't be kidding if I didn't say Black Swan is a character that I'm also, highly anticipating as well. Now, as for the two rerun characters, Jing and Daniel, of course, go for whatever character you choose to go for this patch, but if you are looking for best bang for your buck, in my honest opinion from this patch entirely, Sparkle is going to be the best character you can pick up. She is a very nice universal support, and she brings a lot of stuff to the table that Bronya isn't able to bring. If you don't have Bronya, consider this to be a Bronya you can get without having to worry about the RNG and Honkai style gacha system, right? You can unlock Bronya eventually from the 300 selector pity on the standard banner, but if you are a new player, you can get Bronya early without having to worry about RNG, and I think that's very nice, right? Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Good luck on whoever you choose to pull this patch. Peace.